The Waves of Tech is the down-to-earth tech podcast for you, your family, and your friends. We remove all the complicated, drawn-out explanations of technology and simply talk about how technology is influencing every element of our lives, from social media and the cloud to tweeting and mobile communication. We talk tech in a different way. So plug in your devices and listen as we get ready to ride the Waves of Tech.
On episode 414 of The Waves of Tech, we are speaking with Rebecca Olson, Executive Director of 59 Days of Code. The Waves of Tech is powered by modernlife.network, modern issues, modern discussions. Well, Steve, welcome into another episode. How you doing today, man?
I'm actually doing very well, Dave. It's another Monday. It's time to ride those waves of tech. And I've really been looking forward to today's episode because we've actually kind of hinted around for the last couple weeks that we are going to be discussing the 59 Days of Code. What a guest we have on tonight. And got some great stories, but more importantly, just kind of the evolution and what's involved in 59 Days of Code I'm really looking forward to talking about.
Well, absolutely. I don't want to waste any more time, so I'd like to welcome Rebecca Olson to the podcast. Rebecca, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us about yourself and how you got connected with 59 Days of Code.
Great. Well, so I came to Fresno about 6 years ago after school and spent most of my career in project management and business development. A few years ago, I came back from serving as a volunteer in the Peace Corps and was looking around Fresno and the Valley for people who were doing things, people who said, hey, this is a good idea for our communities. Let's go for it. And those people were the people in the Bitwise building. I had a mutual friend with Irma, and we sat down and had a couple conversations, and I was hired at 59 Days of Code to kind of bring it back. It had been on somewhat of a hiatus for a couple of years. So I started about 2 years ago and have been there trying to do good work in the tech community here in the Valley.
Well, that's cool. 59 Days of Code is you guys can head over to 59daysofcode.org. It's a nonprofit for the growth of the technology industry and community in the San Joaquin Valley. So Rebecca, Steve and I actually had the privilege of traveling just up the road, 2 hours from us from Bakersfield, to go check out the competition, which is just a portion of what you guys do over at 59 Days of Code. So why don't you give us a little bit of background on what the competition is? I was completely fascinated by it, ultimately because I really thought that these developers and these creative minds in the Central Valley of California were finding solutions technologically to solve and resolve a lot of the local problems. I thought that was a really unique take from different technology conferences we've been in the past. So just fill us in on what the competition is, how it's evolved over the last couple years.
So the competition is actually what 59 Days of Code was when it started. Back in 2010, Irma Olguin and Travis Sheridan with the Central Valley Business Incubator had this challenge in the Valley that there were a lot of technologists, but they weren't talking to each other. They were only sitting in the corners of Starbucks doing their thing, and they saw a lot of potential for what could be as far as a technology community. So this competition started up in 2010. A few competitors, a little bit of cash money for prizes, and it grew from there. So they ran it for 5 years into this, and it became this huge, big deal in the tech community in Fresno. The last year it ran was 2014, and then it kind of went on a hiatus for a few years. The board of directors at that time was all volunteer. A competition like this is a lot of work. So when I came on in 2016, we decided to bring it back. The idea behind the competition is to provide a platform for local technologists to do their thing and create really awesome projects with the idea that we're starting new tech companies, we're connecting tech individuals with each other and creating a community around technology. Something we added in the last 2 years, like you mentioned, was a theme. Our competition now has 2 tracks. One is called Classic, kind of in the classic style of the competition from 2010, which is open to any idea. And then Ignite, which is our new track, which focuses on issues in the San Joaquin Valley. The goal is to get our geeks to be thinking of new ways to impact their communities, to use technology for good, right? So last year we focused on water, and this year our theme was smart cities, and we've seen some really incredible out-of-the-box thinking with these projects and new businesses that have started up because of it.
I know when Dave gave me a phone call and he said, hey, do you want to go up to Fresno and go to 59 Days of Code? And I go, yeah, that's fine, Dave, but isn't a hotel room for 59 days going to be pretty expensive to watch them code for 2 months? I said, wow. But actually, it was a great event. And I love what the primary basis of what 59 Days of Code is. I would say a grassroots level point of view of bringing in many different people we saw different cultures, different backgrounds, different educational components to be able to apply those various gifts into a positive way. And I thought for me, that was really exciting. Can anyone become a competitor in these events?
Yeah, anyone can be a competitor. I find that something that's really beautiful about our competition because I'm actually not a coder. I've had about 6 weeks of HTML and that's it. But the competition's, it's open to anyone. And the way we judge it is actually encourages diverse teams. We look at business side of things, we look at design, and we look at code. So it's actually important that not just coders are participating.
Yeah, I thought one of the unique things, and you talked about that, Rebecca, is that they're using technology for good. And the variety of competitors that were out there, just to give people an idea, is there was this great one that Steve, I know you really enjoyed, was Pocket Park. And it was a way in order, as you said, of developing into a smart city, is having an application connected to the municipal parking system that's in place that you could check your times, you could pay up, you can extend your time while you're parked, whether you're at the bar, the restaurant, hanging out with friends downtown. Pocket Park was a really cool example of that. Another one I thought was really cool was Polito, which was essentially like a crowdsourced recycling application, which allowed you to find out where certain recyclable options are around, and you can just do it all via the app. A couple other ones, I know I was a big fan of Cheers Mate because it was associated with beer and solving the problem of, hey, next time we get together, I'll buy you a beer. That was a cool one. And then TatStat, I thought was really interesting. It was based around the tattoo industry and how different tattoo artists spend an incredible amount of time scheduling appointments, and so they actually had a profile built via TatStat, and the customers were directly right to there, and you could collect and schedule your times. You could collect your deposits all within one application. That was really cool. And going a little bit more to using technology for good was one called Enough is Enough. And this was ones that had some sort of issue that they needed to resolve, whether they're a victim of like sexual assaults, spousal abuse, domestic abuse, or if they having issues with food hunger. This was a way, essentially, kind of quietly, of going onto the website and being connected with the local social services, with the city of Fresno, the county of Fresno, and being able to access the information and the data and phone numbers that you needed to help you out in your certain situation. So I think when we're looking at smart cities and developing software and applications, I wanted to highlight some of those because that's really what they're doing, is they're looking at problems locally and trying to solve them. And everyone I thought was cool, Rebecca, is everybody had more of a global reach they wanted to. They wanted to start locally, but then expand it out to different parts of Central California and even beyond the borders of California.
Exactly. So that's kind of what we're encouraging our teams to do, right? Nobody knows their communities better than them. And they're developing their projects. We encourage them to think about sustainability and how they grow their business. Not only is the point of their apps to improve the community, but they're trying to create a business and make a living off of it as well, which has incredible economic potential for our local communities. I wanted to mention something actually about a few of those teams that you brought up. Pocket Park specifically was one of the first group of students that I worked with at 59 Days of Code. That team was actually a group of students from Kalinga who they'd never heard of technology really before, and through West Hills College they participated in some classes with Geekwise Academy and then did a hackathon with us at 59 Days of Code. And since that time, they've been volunteering for me, they've been teaching for me, and just really giving back to the community. And I kind of twisted their arm into competing this year because I know that their skills have really developed from nothing, and now they're all professional freelance developers and creating some really cool ideas. And I wanted to have them get their ideas out there and their skills out there, connecting with other people in the tech industry and saying, hey, this isn't like just reserved for people who've been in tech in Fresno. This is something that can impact cities across the valley, rural communities included.
If I may just jump on Pocket Park one time, I don't want to make the show about them, but this kind of relates to all the competitors. And with Pocket Park, one of the things that really caught my attention, and I did vote for them, by the way, was their enthusiasm. And we saw it through a lot of the booths that we traveled through, but this group had an incredible enthusiasm. And I, in fact, asked one of the individuals, can I ask how old you are? I think the person said 19, and I almost fell out of my chair because I couldn't even spell Pocket Park when I was 18 or 19 years old. And I just find it very remarkable that people of that generation, of that age, are willing to get involved. And the other thing I really liked across the board was that it wasn't something being handled or transpired or to make good on a personal level, but at a community level. And I really appreciated that.
That's something that we kind of pride ourselves on from the very beginning. Our competition has been about building a community more than building an industry or building people with skills. It's about connecting folks. And I think a lot of times that gets forgotten in the midst of, running an organization or the programs that you're doing. But every year I'm reminded at the competition, at the expo, the energy level that other people bring to it is it's absolutely incredible. Everyone's so excited, and it's a really cool thing to see because that's not something that's generated by 59 Days of Code. That's something that's generated by the competitors and by the audiences that come out. So I'm glad you noticed it as well.
Yeah, it's great. When we're talking about community here, I think the technology community can be exactly that. It's a chance for us to look at sort of the evolution we're going through and create a revolution and really take over certain sectors of our own lives, our local community. And the beauty of it, Rebecca, is you guys are taking developers and students and companies and using all that power for good. You're creating these great resources and solutions to, some things that are perhaps happening on the fringes of society. And, just looking at some of the numbers on your website, I mean, you've had over 200 plus students assimilated at these events. You've over 25 businesses have been created because of what's going on with the competition, 59 Days of Code. And even on your website, you guys are boasting that there's been over 400 plus developers that have been discovered just because of this. And Steve's right. Every booth that I went to, whether it was Pocket Park or Cheersmate or Tatstat or any of the other 15 or 20 that I visited, everybody was energetic. Everybody wanted to share their story about how they got into the technology community, how they became a developer, and it was great to see how the individuals within the group were working. One was sort of a marketing thing. Another one was the coder. One was a developer. One was someone that was actually working in the industry but didn't have the technological skills to make things happen. So just like everything in life, we need those support structures around us. And I thought that was really evident with 59 Days of Code. Well, let me ask you, Rebecca, moving forward, you've obviously seen the growth of the event since you guys kicked it off again. What are there certain plans like in the near future to expand to a larger audience, inviting more people to come and apply for it? Or is there thoughts of maybe branching out into different cities or different regions of Central California? Where are you guys standing at this point?
So our target market is actually the entire San Joaquin Valley, from Bakersfield all the way up to Stockton. And the way we structure our competition is anyone around the world can compete, but only someone who has a material presence in the San Joaquin Valley can win. Meaning you have to live here or you have to own a business here to win the competition, because we want to invest our time and money and resources into our local places. We are a very small team at 59 Days of Code, so we kind of work using a lot of word of mouth, which means that we've been rather restricted to the Fresno market. We have a few contacts in Bakersfield and Modesto, but hopefully maybe in the future you guys can help us out in getting the word out to have more competitors in different cities competing as well.
I know that in some fashion we'll be involved next year, Dave. I mean, this is just a fantastic thing that Rebecca and everybody, is doing, and I know we can generate some enthusiasm. I also know that any kind of event is an incredible difficult thing to pull off, as Dave and I are gearing up for International Podcast Day next month. If you don't want to divulge any of this information, that is fine, and we'll just cut it out of the podcast. But how does the organization fund itself to be able to carry on these competitions?
That's an excellent question, and funding is always a struggle for nonprofits. It's the bane of our existence, really. The competition itself is funded through sponsorships. So we go around to local tech companies, and then organizations and companies that are relevant to our theme for the year, and we ask them to sponsor. And it's a transaction, so there are benefits involved, like any kind of event sponsorship. So marketing benefits and tickets to special events and things like that. I've found, though, that through our sponsorships, the perks aren't really what people are interested in. Most of our sponsors are just really excited about what we're doing with the competition and how we're impacting developers and technologists throughout the Valley. So I spend a good 6 months fundraising before the competition, specifically for that event. Most of our other programs are funded through grants and just independent fundraising and donors.
Is 59 Days of Code working with some of those, like in the educational space, whether it's the junior colleges, Cal State Fresno that's up there, or even some of the vocational institutions that are up there? I know there's tech expos, hackathons, scholarships. Is there a connection either now or in the future of bridging those two together? Because I know a lot of educational institutions have a lot of reach, and they want to invest not only in their programs that they're offering for their student base, but also offering sort of a pathway to be a part of something in the future, i.e. the competition, part of a developers conference, or part of running your own business that is heavily tech-based. So is there movement in that direction for you guys?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, another one of our big programs is tech education. It's going to be looking different in the future. In the past, we've worked with the colleges in town, Fresno Pacific University, Fresno State, West Hills Community College, as well as Fresno Unified, and then a few of the school districts out on the west side of the county as well. What we found is that a lot of schools from middle school through college are offering their own computer science courses. So we're kind of pivoting in our tech education scheme to focus on job skills development. Where are the gaps for people who are maybe skilled in one area but need some help and some soft skills or some advanced programming languages in order to land a job? We pretty regularly evaluate where these gaps exist in the Central Valley, and we work pretty hard to make sure that our limited resources are going where they're going to be most effective. So yes, we do have connections with the schools, but we're kind of moving away from that at this point. We do work pretty closely with the Computer Science Club at Fresno State. They've actually come to a number of our trainings, and we're hoping to be able to hire a few students to do some teaching for us. So we like partnerships like that because the students are getting something out of it, as well as helping us out with some of our programming.
One thing that I'll just comment on is being at the event. I really appreciate the food trucks, and Dave and I got to spend some time in the mobile library that you had there, and we commented on that a few times and took a couple tours, and I really appreciate what you did with the venue, not just the room and the setup, but also some of the outside activities that I think really complemented the competition well.
Well, thank you very much. Our goal with that is to attract a crowd that maybe wouldn't normally consider coming to a tech expo, right? Technology is really scary for a lot of people. I used to be one of those people. You hear the words code and you're kind of like, well, I don't know what that is. I can't do that. But maybe if you entice them with their favorite food truck or, some beer, some fun activities to do, they'll come out and just happen to wander through the Pacific Southwest building and see all of these projects and be like, hey, this is pretty cool. Hey, maybe I want to try something. Maybe I want to get involved. It's a way to get new faces coming through.
And it's so unique how individuals, both at, anywhere from our ages to those that are in elementary school, how they just get attracted and they're drawn to a specific thing once they have a little bit of exposure. And you mentioned that, Rebecca, it's trying to reach a little bit broader audience than just the tech industry, because we can be a little bit isolating at times. We can sort of put ourselves in our own little bubble and just work within our own industry, working with our professionals and our fellow colleagues, but branching out and sharing what we do with somebody who perhaps would not have thought of coding or development or, app development as a career choice. I think that's part. I mean, I know that each of us in our work, we somehow got a bug and we were curious. And it's grown into a passion and grows into a career. And I love that. Whereas 59 Days of Code in the competition is, like you said, more centrally with Fresno, it still has implications, hundreds of miles away. I mean, in Bakersfield, we're hearing about it. You mentioned the students out of Kalinga that got involved, and it's just great to see that spread and just the use and power of technology and people's interest just grow, that just grows and grows day after day. So I had one other question for you, Rebecca. I know feedback is often difficult for some events and for some organizers. Steve and I have, experienced that as well. But are you hearing from anybody that's perhaps out in the community or some of these other businesses of sort of the positive impact and influence that 59 Days of Code has been having on that community and the tech industry of San Joaquin Valley?
We don't hear feedback from them so often. I get a lot of feedback from my competitors, and they always say, you need to look more at code, more code, instead of the entrepreneurship aspects of it. But when we're talking with the people we work with closely, they notice a change in attitude in the people who get involved with 59 Days of Code. And I can't say it's 59 Days of Code itself that can't really take credit for it. But I think it's the opportunity that we provide for technologists to meet and gather with other people who are just as passionate about the same things as they are. And that's really how you create a movement. And I think you see that a lot through the different technology companies who are becoming very successful in the Fresno area.
I have one final question from me, Dave, and that is when it comes to the relationship, by the way, I'm going to disagree with your competitors. Code is not the only important aspect because code is worthless without all the other surrounding components around it to make it a viable product that works. That's just Steve's comment. And lastly, when we're talking about the development of these codes and these projects and all that, in terms of the management aspect and all those kinds of things, do you use any kind of the assistant tools or anything like, GitHub or anything like that to kind of meld these projects in?
Yeah, so GitHub is actually the platform we use, and they've been a big sponsor of ours in the past, and then last year they actually rolled out a GitHub nonprofit platform, which has enabled us to provide all of our competitors with private repositories. So they actually build their project in there, and we monitor it to make sure that they're committing code regularly, they're staying up to date on their projects, there's no cheating going on. And then our judges also have access to that. So they're evaluating the code within a GitHub repository as well. It's made it extremely easy for us, and it's been an invaluable tool in the competition and in a lot of other things that we do across the board.
Let's talk about those judges for a second, and because I think we're all forgetting to some extent that there is cash on the line and that it's technically a competition and everybody's vying for, the check to make their product and their application viable. So what are the judges looking for? Is there anything specifically year after year? Is it a changing sort of criteria for evaluation? Is it a panel of 15 or 6, or sort of walk us through some of the judging elements of the competition?
Yeah, so judging is probably the most difficult thing to organize. We select judges based on the judging criteria, and we refine them every year based on feedback from our competitors, feedback from the judges, and what we think worked and didn't work as far as the previous year's competition. This year we looked at 4 categories: tech or code, so that applies both to software and hardware. The design elements like UI, UX, marketing and business, and included in that was people's choice voting. And then the final is impact. So we had 4 judges on our panel. Each one kind of had an expertise in each of those areas: code, design, business, and impact. And we go through a long list of names, and we try to eliminate anyone with any bias or any conflict of interest. We look for people who are excited and willing to give their time because judging is a very long and difficult process. These judges are giving hours a day for almost 2 weeks, looking at the projects, the code behind the scenes, and then expo day as well. And it's hard to create questions for the judges and things that they should be looking for that encompass everything that's important in starting a business and everything that's important in writing good code, creating good design, thinking strategically about your business plan. It's a long process and it takes a whole team of people.
Yeah, that's incredible, because I think as we're talking here, the development of an app is just one portion of it, right? As you hinted at, Rebecca, there's business and there's marketing and there's the financial solvency of what you're doing in the future and the way to, to market that and profit off that. And I bet the competitors within the competition are learning truly valuable lessons as far as being business owners, as being, entrepreneurs, as being critical thinkers and decision makers, as they go down the path of wanting to solve a problem, via technology. And I could imagine after, sort of what they hear from the judges of going back and either rethinking, refining, or redefining what they're doing, I got to believe that information is nearly invaluable for them to really push their software and their application really to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I think is really cool is even those competitors that aren't looking to start a business, our judging criteria kind of makes them think outside of the box and get out of their comfort zone and what they're used to thinking about when they're coding. I would say at least 75% of our competitors are developers. They code, they don't really do anything else. But we challenge them to develop new skills, which I think they find really helpful, not only in their careers and jobs, but also in creating code and the coding part, right? So thinking about how a business can be sustainable or their product can be sustainable does impact how you're coding and how you're creating your project organizationally.
I'd be curious from a community standpoint. Number one, if they know what's going on within your organization and what they're attempting to do, is there, how do I want to say that? Does the community actually get involved in perhaps a desire of what problems should be addressed when it comes to tackling them with code?
That's a great question. We haven't done too much outreach community-wise. Usually what happens is I'm sitting down with people, I'm sitting down with different organizations and kind of asking them what they see the biggest issues are in our area. And then our team kind of evaluates what's been going on in tech, what's been going on in the news locally, and that's how we narrow down a topic or a theme for the year. I'd love to get more feedback from the community on what they see are the biggest problems facing us and how we can use tech to address it.
Yeah, community is such a big, I don't want to say problem, but it's difficult, right? If it's not associated with like an election or local politics or your trash not getting picked up, there's not too many people that are really being vocal about what needs to be done out there, right? They usually leave that to the talking heads, the news and some other people. But yeah, I think you bridging the gap and going to visit these organizations and hearing from them who are essentially representing their constituency, whether that in whatever service or whatever industry they're in, I think it's great. And Steve, to your point, I think it's great that there are, we all see issues around our communities, right? We say, hey, it would be great if this was solved or if there was a great app to do X, Y, Z. And the beauty of it is that these individuals are saying, that's the problem. I personally am going to tackle it. Let me find the team and the community need to make that happen. And so perhaps even with community members specifically not being involved in finding different ways to get them, introduced and, finding out the problems, I'm glad there are visionaries out there and these entrepreneurs that are envisioning in a future where technology is helping people, right? And so you may not need that community feedback per se because there's enough people out there that see the problem and want to try and help it and figure things out in the future.
That's why I say it's just not about the coding. It's just not about the tech. It's about vision. It's about marketing. It's about all those components that make some kind of a change to make all of our lives better. And I think 59 Days of Code is on their way to making those great things happen.
We try. We're really just trying to keep up with everyone else.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. The technology, that's why our show is called The Waves of Tech, because, man, it can come full throttle or it can scale back, and there's so much ebb and flow to the technology industry. So, Rebecca, I wanted to thank you for joining our podcast. There's so much great information. We definitely encourage everybody to go over to 59daysofcode.org, see what's going on over there. Rebecca, if people want to get in touch with you or find out more about it, what are the best ways to get in touch with you?
On our website, there's an info email. It comes straight to me. And then there's a phone number as well. And I'm usually available during business hours. And we love to hear from anyone who has any feedback or ideas for 59 Days of Code.
Awesome. Well, Steve, I will let you have a final say for episode 414.
I get the final say. You get the intro, I get the final.
That's how it works.
Hey, listen, I mean, people that listen to our show, Dave, it's usually week in, week out of us babbling about technology and, why did Facebook do this, or why did this happen and I got hacked, and, those common occurrences when it comes to the technology news and how it impacts you. But here's a different type of impact that I couldn't wait to discuss, and I was so glad you invited me to go up and see the incredible event that transpired, in that we can all make a difference is kind of what I take out of this. We can all make a difference if we get involved, if we have a purpose, if we think outside the box. Man, we hear that all the time, but can you really do it? I think we have found people that can, and especially from Rebecca, who's managing this incredible thing and pulling off an event that has merit and potential to affect people's lives, which is something that we talk about on this show. So I'm just so delighted to have gone. Even more happy that Rebecca has joined us on this episode of The Waves of Tech to bring more light what's going on within communities and technology.
Absolutely. Well, Rebecca, did you want any final parting words before we end episode 414?
Our next competition will be next summer, so everyone should keep an eye out for it and bring your big ideas. And we're on social media, so that's the best way to see what's going on with 59 Days of Code and what we're doing in the Valley.
Yeah, that's awesome. 59 Days of Code. Just search for them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They have a YouTube channel, which we'll have a link in our show notes for. Also, they're on Google+. So just search 59 Days of Code across all social media platforms. You are going to find what they're doing. So Steve and Rebecca, thanks for joining me on episode 414 of the Waves of Tech. We'll be back next week with some fresh new technology news and interest to share with the community. The Waves of Tech is powered by modernlife.network. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to keep on teching.